See, I always thought our connection was my buddy, comic buddy, who I started with, Paul Reiser.
Yeah.
And, we had a mutual friend, sadly now departed, Michael Hampton Caine, and he and Paul were out buying underwear one day, and he had an audition for Diner. Michael did.
Yes.
And Paul was just tagging along.
Right.
You remember this?
No, I know the story.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
I remember.
And he got the part.
No,
obviously.
I'd tell you what happened on the other side of it then. Ellen Chenoweth, who was the casting director, she said, there's a guy out there. He came with his friend. They're going somewhere afterwards. I don't know what.
Buying underwear. I'm telling you.
And she said, I'm listening to him talk, and I like his rhythm. It seems good.
Yeah.
And she said, but I don't think he's ever done anything. I said, well, I'll meet him. So he came in, we talked.
You hadn't done much by then, right? We're talking about 1982.
This is the first, this would be my first chance to direct.
Yes, I know.
And he came in and we talked for about 20 minutes, half hour. And when he left, I said to Ellen, I said, we have to use him. I just got to figure out the character, and then I'm going to work with him. It'll be good. And
I mean, that rhythm that he has, which is all his, they used to say that he took it from Richard Lewis. There is a similarity there, but he didn't take it from Richard Lewis.
No,
right?
That's the way he talks.
It's the way he talks. And so does Richard Lewis, to a degree.
Yes.
I mean, I could see why people would say that. But sometimes Jews just sound alike. There, I've said it. Jews all sound, not all, but, and that's what it was. And they're funny.
Yeah, no.
I mean, a lot of that movie was ad lib, right?
That's how, with Paul, like if we were, I remember late at night, and we still had a little time left, and I said, why don't you talk to Eddie, the character, Gutenberg is playing that, and just say, are you going home? And he says, of course I'm going home. It's 4 a.m, I said, why don't you just you want to ride, but you don't want to talk about it. And then I told that to Gutenberg, and then we put together a scene. And it ends one of the evenings at the diner.
I mean, it was kind of an early version of what, like, Curb Your Enthusiasm does. Much, right? You're just telling them, you're not giving them a specific dialogue.
Right.
You're just saying, this is the scene. These are funny people, funny comic actors, but comedians, kind of both. And you do it. It'll look more natural, and it'll come out funnier than people reading dialogue.
Right. No. And that was the fun part of it. The only thing I had to figure out, and we also had to, and I didn't know it at this time, when we started to do that, I said, oh, that's a take. And the audio guy said, well, it's not going to work. I said, why not? I said, because the off-camera guys, the voices, they have to wait. I said, yeah, but it sounds good. It sounds good.
Natural.
It's natural. And he said, no, well, you can always do that in post. You can take one side and the other and you put them together. I said, I know, but it'll affect the rhythm of the actors. They have to be loose enough. They said, well, but that's the way we do it. And I said, well, what happens if you mic all of them? This side of the table and this side of the table. So even if they're off camera, the rhythm is still the rhythm. You can't fix funny moments and just how long a pause is and all that's got to. And so that's what we did. I didn't know that because I was first time doing a film that Altman had used multiple.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
And
you could see that in MASH.
Yeah.
You can see that in Nashville. It's a much more naturalistic. I'm not a giant. Is he still with us?
No.
Great. Okay. So
it's okay. You won't care.
I was never a giant fan of, what's his first name? Altman. Robert Altman.
Robert Altman.
I mean, MASH is obviously a landmark movie. But I like the TV show a lot better than the movie, right? Maybe not. I don't know. But it's a little too naturalistic for me. You, to me, hit a great balance. I mean, your movie, The Diner, is super entertaining, and it's not, I mean, Robert Altman, I mean, it's an acquired taste. I'll just put it that way.
Look, he did some terrific films and some that I didn't particularly care for. But when he did hit with MASH, that was like a breakthrough. I mean, they're operating, there's blood, and they're talking to one another. It's very casual. And that sort of, it's not the Korean War, but set in the Korean War. And that was a breakthrough moment.
But I feel the
along.
pacing is slow. That's his style. So like, just let the camera just take in this portrait, this palette, for a very long time, and not a lot of cut. Maybe I'm wrong, I'm remembering it wrong, but it just seemed a little too unpolished for me. There's something to be said for raw, and there's something to be said for working on it till it's perfect, and you got to find the balance in between. No?
Yes, you do, but at its time, it was a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing. All of a sudden, something different. You go, oh, and then things went along that way. Now, he continued to do it, but sometimes successfully, sometimes not so.
But Diner was also that, because it sort of ushered in this ensemble. Not that people hadn't done an ensemble cast before, but I feel like that's my memory of it, that it sort of made legitimate this sort of ensemble way of doing a movie. I mean, like, who's the star of it?
Yeah.
All of them. It was sort of equal. Was it Mickey Rourke? No.
No.
Was it Daniel Stern? No. Was it Reiser? I mean, Gutenberg? I mean, there was no, like, definitive, oh, that's the prima alpha.
Right.
It was all, it's ensemble.
No, they're all dependent of one another.
Yeah.
They all have separate stories to wander through, but they're different characters, but they do work as a group. It's not, here's the lead and here's the friends.
I mean, that's, I think, the same year as The Big Chill, or maybe The Big Chill was 83.
I'm not sure. They were near one another.
Remember The Big Chill?
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like I know what that was commenting on, The Big Chill, but I feel like Diner, what would you say it was like? What was the message or the comment on this era we're living in, this new decade, and where are we in 1982? What was it saying about that?
Well, it was really what we're saying in 1959, which is when the movie is set.
Yeah, but commenting, you can set a movie in BC and it still can be commenting.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
What's the Arthur Miller movie about the Salem witch trials? It's really commenting on the communist scare of the 50s, the Crucible.